The ocean, like time, doesn't care who you are. It crashes the same for saints and for monsters. The Arcadia Hotel sat right at the edge of it all, a place to buy peace by the night. But inside that hotel suite, something was unraveling. The public mask he always wore was about to slip. He accosted her with brutal questions. He made her kneel. He pointed the gun at her face. And the man Los Angeles called a generous visionary, the man who gave it one of its greatest gifts, pulled the trigger. Los Angeles does a great job of dazzling you on the surface. The skyline, the stars, the studio tours in Beverly Hills. We spend a day chasing it all. But up in the hills where the city thins out and the noise fades is a stunning retreat that is beloved. Griffith Park stretches out in every direction. And everywhere you turn, his name is there. Griffith J. Griffith, the man who gave Los Angeles this land and the money to expand it. He wanted the park to speak for him and his legacy. To this day it does. But it doesn't exactly tell you the whole story. Griffith Jenkins Griffith arrived in Los Angeles in 1882. He got rich fast as a mining expert and spun it into a personal brand. He wasn't just wealthy. He branded himself as a man of ideals, preaching virtue, warning against decadence. He also gave himself a title, Colonel, one he never earned in the military. By the turn of the century, he was one of the most recognizable names in Los Angeles, the kind of man newspapers quoted and high society welcomed. But Griffith wasn't just after wealth or respect, he wanted permanence. And in 1896, he and his wife gave the city a gift, over 3,000 acres of rugged land. This became Griffith Park, a breathing space for future generations. The deed was signed by both Griffith and his wife Christina. His fortune, combined with her inheritance, made the gift possible, but only he received credit. His name was written into the city, long before anyone knew what else he was capable of. By the early 1900s, Griffith was everywhere. He appeared in newspapers as a civic voice of reason, giving speeches on education, morality, and good government. He was held up as proof that a man could get rich and still give back. His wife, Christina, came from the Mesmer family, one of Los Angeles' oldest and most prominent Catholic families. They'd been married since 1887. On paper, they were a power couple, but something behind the scenes was shifting. Griffith had always been particular, eccentric, intense, but his behavior had become harder to ignore. He obsessed over the smallest slights, switched plates at restaurants, warned Christina that people were watching, that food might be poisoned. He also began to drink heavily. In public, he continued to quote scripture and draft park legislation while claiming that he abstained from alcohol and other vices. But behind closed doors, the paranoia was growing. Christina confided in family that his behavior had turned erratic, even delusional. He accused her church of plotting against him. He claimed the Pope was involved, but publicly, she stayed quiet. And in late August, the family left downtown for their usual summer retreat, a suite at the Arcadia Hotel in Santa Monica. Nothing felt wrong, but something was about to break. The Griffiths had been at the Arcadia Hotel for weeks, a presidential suite overlooking the beach. It was a familiar ritual. On September 3rd, 1903, Griffith seemed calm and unusually pleasant. That afternoon, they took a walk through town while their 15-year-old son Van played on the beach. Then he suggested she return to the room and start packing. They were headed home in the morning. When he joined her upstairs a short time later, he was clearly agitated and quiet. While she packed, he crossed the room and picked up her prayer book. Then he softly asked her if she'd swear on it, the same way she would swear on a Bible. Christina was confused but told him yes. Then his tone changed. He told her to kneel. She looked up and saw a revolver in his hand. He started asking more questions, written on a card he had prepared in advance. He asked if she had ever heard anything about poison, if she conspired to harm him, if she'd been faithful to her marriage vows. She answered each one quickly. No, she hadn't tried to hurt him. Yes, she had been faithful. He told her to close her eyes, and then he squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck just above her right eye and dropped her to the floor. Amazingly, she wasn't dead. Disoriented, she forced herself up, stumbled to the window, and jumped. She fell 2 stories onto the hotel's covered veranda. Profusely bleeding and with a broken arm, she crawled across the roof and into an empty second-floor room. A bellboy found her on the floor, face soaked in blood, her voice shaking. Griffith wasn't too far behind. "Don't let him in," she said. "He's just shot me." The last train back to the city was gone. Christina was forced to stay at the hotel that night while Griffith slept upstairs in their room. Doctors found her right eye was destroyed, a 1/16 of an inch lower, and it would have entered her brain. And while she underwent surgery, he showed up at City Hall and had lunch downtown. When reporters caught up to him, he claimed it had all been a misunderstanding, maybe an accidental discharge. He told one paper the wound amounts to nothing at all. Then he offered a theory that Christina, overcome by religious devotion, might have shot herself. The Mesmer family came forward. They said the marriage had never been as perfect as Griffith had claimed. They described him as controlling, jealous, frequently drunk, and obsessed with Christina's religion. The newspapers that had once printed his speeches and park proposals now ran damning headlines. And one of LA's most famous philanthropists was now under arrest for attempted murder. His lawyers blamed alcoholic insanity, claiming Griffith was delusional, paranoid, and addicted to the habit of drinking absinthe with French vermouth, a concoction rather fatal to sanity if indulged freely enough and long enough. Christina, despite the loss of her eye and being disfigured, took the stand in a dark veil and testified against him. And still, the jury didn't convict him of attempted murder. Instead, they found Griffith guilty of assault with a deadly weapon. He served less than 2 years in San Quentin. After prison, Griffith offered the city money to build a Greek theater and an observatory in the park that still bore his name. City officials hesitated to associate his name with new projects while he was alive. After the trial, Christina never remarried. She withdrew from public life and lived out the rest of her days in quiet seclusion. She died in 1948 at the age of 84. Her obituaries never mentioned the shooting. Griffith J. Griffith died in 1919. And despite everything, the city eventually built both the theater and the observatory he dreamed of. At the edge of Griffith Park, there's a bronze statue of the man himself. He stands dignified. There's no mention of the prayer book, the bullet, or the woman whose name was also on the deeds of the land and who had to leap out of a window to survive him. Christina Mesmer Griffith is erased from the park's history. Money and power have a way of polishing names. They keep what flatters and silence the rest. Griffith J. Griffith gave Los Angeles one of its greatest public spaces, and in return, it gave him exactly what he wanted: a legacy, clean, polished, and permanent. Because time doesn't always separate saints from monsters.